Ready? Are we ready? Yes. Are we ready? Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Councilmember Jose Weezer. I'm joined by Councilmember Zine. This is the Audits and Governmental Efficiency Committee. We have a number of items today. I do want to say that we will continue item number 6. Can you, what's the item number 6, Clark? Can you?
Item number 6 is Department of Water and Power Communication relative to the low-income discount program. This item was also referred to the Energy and Environment Committee.
Okay. So we'll continue that item, and we have, if we could start with items number 1 and 2. They are somewhat related. Item number, can you read them, please, Clark?
Yep. Item number 1 is a motion by Council Members Zine and Weezer relative to the instruction for the City Administrative Officer to report to the Audits and Governmental Efficiency Committee with a proposal for a full-time dedicated support staff member for the Quality and Productivity Commission. This item was also referred to the Personnel Committee. Item number 2 is a communication from the Council President relative to the appointment of Mr. Bruce Ackerman to the Quality and Productivity Commission to fill the vacancy created by Ms. Ann Jackson.
Great, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
If you could introduce yourselves and...
I'm Martin Cooper, President of the Quality and Productivity Commission.
Thank you.
Tyler Munhall, City CAO.
Thank you very much. And we thought we would have welcome Commission President, and it's great to have you in this committee, and we thought we'd hear from you first as to what are your plans for the upcoming year, what has your commission been working on, and how can both our committee and our commission work together.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you today. First of all, I want to thank the two of you specifically, Councilman Zine and Councilman Weezer, for sponsoring the motion regarding staffing for the Commission, because, as you know, that has been one of the more challenging things we've had to deal with in the last year and a half or two. Mm-hmm. That motion has opened the door for us to meet with the CAO and to talk in some detail about our needs and how they can be met. We had a very productive meeting, and we appreciate Ray Serrano's time on that. But again, thank you for introducing that motion. Secondly, Councilman Weezer, we want to thank you for getting the Tom Bradley room and arranging for our employee recognition program in council chambers, and Eric on your staff has been very helpful in that regard also, so we want to thank him publicly for that.
Thank you.
I think we have made some significant progress in the staffing issue for the Commission. Hello.
Hello, Marty. Nice to see you. Excuse me for my tardiness.
It's fine, you're excused.
We have had a staff of 3 up until 3 years ago, and then budgetary constraints brought it down to 1 person, 1 full-time dedicated staff person. And in the last year plus, we have had to make do as can with transitory help to the degree possible from the CAO's office. What we have done is, at the same time we have been dealing with the staffing issue, we created a strategic plan. I believe you all have a copy of that and passed it. And we are ready to revise that strategic plan. In terms of our staffing specifically, based on that positive meeting I held with Ray Serrano, I think we are in a much better position in terms of his office's commitment to provide staffing to the degree that is appropriate and necessary to move forward on a number of fronts, above and beyond simply the awards program that we have carried out for many, many years on behalf of the city employees.
Great. Thank you.
You have 2 documents. One is our current strategic plan, and it's for the year 2007-2009, and a draft document following that, which are the programs that we propose to carry out in the coming 2 years, which I'm happy to review with you to the degree that you'd like.
Great, thank you very much. Can we hear from the CAO's office?
Sure. The motion requested that the CAO report on staffing for the Commission, as well as that the Commission provide its goals and objectives for the year. The report did provide background on staffing for the Commission over the last few years and describe current staffing, which, as the Commission President said, has has increased. It's actually one senior administrative analyst, almost full-time, along with the chief and administrative support for the commission. The objectives of the commission are attached. There's a draft list of objectives that the commission submitted, which is behind their strategic plan. It's the second attachment, and I'm available for any questions.
Great, thank you. So there's an agreement to provide an analyst and a part-time, part of an administrative aide to assist the commission. Is that correct?
I would call it, yes, an informal agreement.
An informal agreement, okay. And what about for long-term? This is kind of an informal, short-term agreement. We're going to see how this works and then come back and determine for long-term needs? Is that the idea?
The brief answer to your question is yes. I think we've been given two things. One is a commitment to work more closely together, which all of us on the commission are most appreciative of, because a lot of that is conceptual and philosophic. How do we feel about this commission, and do we want to support them? And I think we have that conceptual support. I think that's an important point to be made, even though it can't easily be quantified. The second thing is, yes, we have an informal agreement that we will have approximately the equivalent of one staff person. That's not a dedicated staff person, and as we all know, when various potential activities are thrown to the CAO's office, all of the forces have to be marshaled to meet that particular need. But so that's why I say it is an informal agreement. There's no timeline on it. I think you're probably putting it best when you say that's a shorter-term approach, and we'll see how things go.
Okay.
I would just add, I think that our expectation is in 6 months or so, we're going to talk more and find out if it's working the way it is, if it's not working, what we need to do to improve that.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, questions?
Just,
The,
no. Sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Zine. You're
Mr. Zine?
the vice chair. I'll let you go first.
the frustration. What are you laughing at, Mr. Cooper? Is this
Laughing
funny
at
to
me.
you, Mr. Cooper?
No, I thought it was
He's laughing at me
fascinating
because I
that Ms. Gruhl acceded to your important position on this chair,
Well,
on
we're very
this committee.
smart of you, Mr. Cooper.
For the record, Mr. Zine is laughing over here, so those listening on the
Right,
box
that's
could.
right.
We're all good
It's
friends.
serious.
This was a laugh of appreciation, not of derision.
I got to say, I've known Marty Cooper a long time. He has a very successful business, and he expressed his frustration, along with other members of the commission, that we're trying to do something in this hard economic time. You would think that quality and productivity would be paramount in what we're trying to do for the people of Los Angeles with our limited resources. You look at limited resources, quality of the work, productivity of the employees. So the frustration that Marty Cooper and the other commissioners had was they weren't getting any assistance from the city. They were basically out there in the boat all by themselves trying to get things done. Other than the annual awards, nothing was being accomplished because the city wasn't giving many personnel. They all have businesses where they receive income to provide for themselves and their families. They do this out of labor of love. They don't get paid a dime for it. And we weren't able, whatever the reason, to provide any staff. And the frustration that Marty and the other folks had, I shared with, to say, we need to do something to give you some ability to get what you want done so we can make it what we want to make it, a commission that has some substance. You don't see the police commission without staff. You don't see the fire commission without staff. And I believe this is a very important commission that needs to have some personnel. And I spoke to the acting CAO, who assured me that he would make sure that there was some staff assigned so they can get the job done. So I think that the frustration level that you and the other commissioners had has been satisfied by our new CAO, our acting CAO, to bring about some support. I don't expect you to have your secretarial personnel at your work do the paperwork that needs to be done, or the other commissioners. So I think that what we're finding is success, so your commission can deliver the product that they wish to deliver. I know you've done a lot of correspondence. You spend a lot of time on this. I remember when you were up for review or confirmation or reconfirmation, you were going to throw in the towel because of frustration. I said, stay in there, we'll make it happen. So I'm glad to see that we have a recommendation to move forward to give you some support. Again, you do this for free, the meetings for free, everything for free, and anyone who'd want to be a commissioner for free, like Bruce Ackerman, who just walked in the room. Thank you, Bruce.
He likes to be
but
on
it-
2 commissions.
Yeah, but
He really likes
it's a labor of love. You want to do something with it. The commissioners used to get paid, they used to get a stipend. That ended a long time ago. So I just want to acknowledge, Marty, for your perseverance and that of the other commissioners to move forward with this. And I want to see it happen so you'll be able to deliver a product because you have quality. I know you traveled around the world with your company delivering programs. And if we can't provide the assistance to you so you can get the job done, then it's really our negligence. So hopefully this will bring about the change that you've been looking for a long time, and I appreciate your patience and understanding.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Groom?
Now I'm going to laugh at you, Wendy.
You do that often, Mr. Simon.
Okay, only in only.
I just want to acknowledge both of your leadership on, coming up with this motion in December. The quality and productivity awards are a way in which we can acknowledge and the kinds of ideas that come forward for people to feel as though, as city employees, that they really are doing their part. And it's a very important commission. And I think, as we said, Marty, when you first came on, don't be a stranger. Come back and tell us when there are problems and issues. And you did that, which we really appreciate. It refers to a CA report September 12th. Was there a CA report that was actually done, a written report?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't, for some reason, I don't have a copy of that, so maybe we can get a copy of the CA report. But it recommends the additional full-time staffer?
What it does is, there actually is about 1.5 or so around there right now, and it says that the CAO will continue to provide that. It doesn't recommend additional staff beyond that at this time.
I think one of the items that we can look at as we go forward in the budget, which we do frequently within other departments, for example, we hire more traffic officers some years because they can pay for themselves. Because if you hire a traffic officer, they write so many citations and do so many things that pays for them. And there are other positions within, if they are revenue generating positions, we usually don't cut them. I see the Quality and Productivity Commission as a revenue-generating commission and so forth, and that we should look at that in that same vein when it comes through in the Budget Committee. Because if you quantified all of the dollars that were saved in the various programs that the various departments have been participating in, it may be directly correlated to the commission, that we should look at that and see as we go forward. Because if you have more people and can say, we've saved X amount of dollars, it pays for itself. So I think we should look at that as we're going forward to ensure the support for the Quality and Productivity Commission. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Cooper, for all of your hard work. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, we also have the Productivity Incentive Revolving Fund that I understand hasn't been used often. Is there any possibility we could use those funds to provide additional support?
I'll give a quick initial answer, and then I'll let Tyler expand on that. There is approximately $250,000 in this fund, which is committed as a loan to be repaid for programs that save money. In my discussion with the CAO, he brought the same subject up and posited that it might be possible to utilize those funds specifically for the commission to take advantage of external consultants whose work could be put to or put toward activities that the commission is involved in that are beyond the capability of staff, not in terms of time, but in terms of expertise.
CEO?
Yeah, the Productivity Incentive Revolving Fund, I believe it's PERF, is intended to create loans for departments to implement projects that will save money, and then the departments are to repay the fund. That's what it's currently designed to do. How you could use it in different ways beyond that, we would need to look at and come back. We can certainly do that.
Okay.
Let me add one thing to that, if I might. I had a conversation with Laura Chick recently, and one of the areas that she expressed interest in is a project that we have completed, which is looking at past award honorees for their potential replicability in other parts of the city. In other words, if this department won an award for XYZ, where else could we take that would save the city money? Staff, within its limited time, did a first cut and a first look at that and found that, I don't remember the number, but 6 or 7, whatever the accurate number was, Tyler will know what it is, that are worthy of further discussion and review. Well, there's not the staff time to carry out that further review to see if that's practical. That's an appropriate area, it seems to me, to get some additional assistance. If we could use that fund for a consultant to do that, that's an example of how it might be used.
Well, we could get a report back from the CAO on that. And on this item, if there are no further questions from my colleagues, we'll note and file it. Well, actually, we're sending it to personnel, correct? So, what's the
Yes,
correct
I'd
action?
like to see Mr. Cooper in the Personnel Committee, and that would be fine.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to the Personnel Committee, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That'll be the action. Well, thank you, and thank you very much for your service. I think we're
Thanks, all of
taking
you.
some good steps to replicate the efficiencies we've been finding. So, thank you very
And
much.
I would urge you to speedily approve Bruce Ackerman for this commission, because I need someone to carpool with from the Valley.
Speedily.
Mr. Sirota.
Okay, item number 2.
Item number 2 is a communication from the Council President relative to the appointment of Mr. Bruce Ackerman to the Quality and Productivity Commission to fill the vacancy created by Ms. Ann Jackson.
Welcome. Can you step up to the plate, please? Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
And you've been recommended at the request of Councilmember Dennis Zine. That's a first strike against you, so we'll...
I
It's
understand
not my
that.
first mistake. I think I recommended Mr. Cooper, too.
Well, welcome. Just your thoughts. Oh, actually, if you could introduce yourself to the committee and to the public, what you do and what you hope to accomplish in this commission.
Delighted to, Councilman. I'm Bruce Ackerman. My day job is President and CEO of the Economic Alliance of the San Fernando Valley. That's an economic development, job-building organization that was created after the 1994 Northridge earthquake. It's a nonprofit group that operates primarily in the San Fernando Valley, focused on businesses, jobs, and building communities. I also sit as vice chair of the Los Angeles Community Redevelopment Agency, position that the mayor appointed me to some 3 years ago, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that appointment, both the agonies and the ecstasies of that appointment. When I was asked by Councilmember Zine, or we were discussing this appointment, it was really with a great deal of fascination that I looked at the commission, which, quite frankly, I had heard of but didn't really know what it was slated to do. And in looking into it and talking with some of the fellow commissioners, this is really an exciting commission, a commission that can actually recognize outstanding productivity and quality inside city, inside the municipal employment that we have, and hopefully make some recommendations and changes and recognize even greater excellence in the future. So if accepted, if approved, I truly look forward to serving.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you for your willingness to serve, and I think this is a very important commission that we could be doing a lot more to replicate where we find there are some good programs or efficiencies. But when we do, it does save the city not only economic dollars, but sends a good sense of us accomplishing our mission to service the residents of the city of LA. So I thank you for your service. Mr. Zine?
Well, Bruce, I've known you for a long time, like Marty Cooper and some of the other commissioners from that commission, and it's an important commission, and it needs to get the resources to get the job done for our municipal employees, for the people of LA. It reminds me of Richard Katz, who's a good friend, who was head of the Transportation Commission for the state of California Assembly. He never heard much about transportation, and he put it on the map. I'd like to see the same with this, having it put on the map, because it's been a sleeping giant for such a long period of time. As we keep getting cut back, it's all about quality and productivity. It's all about how much more can we deliver to the people who keep screaming, we need to have more services. We want more streets paved. We want more efficiency in government. So I think it's great. You'll be a great commissioner. You've served on other commissions. I know you're doing the CRA work. Great job there. So just one more headache for you to share with your lovely wife. But I'm glad we recommended you for it. I'm glad you accepted that. Glad the council president followed our request to have you on this commission. I know you came off the Van Nuys Airport. There's another individual that we put on that who's a pilot. But I think this fits exactly what you're doing with the Valley, with commerce, with the chambers, with the whole focus of trying to build Valley of the Stars, as we say. So, Mr. Chair, highly recommended approval for Mr. Bruce Ackerman.
Thank you. Ms. Groom?
I would just add as well, in your willingness to add to your many responsibilities. You're president of the Fernando Awards this year?
President of
Yeah.
the Fernando Awards and also president of a statewide association called CalAD, the California Association for Local Economic Development.
And of course, the CRA responsibility.
Right.
So we appreciate that and have representation by 2 people from the Valley, which is fabulous for both you and Mr. Cooper. And you've heard a little bit of our discussion today, the importance of this commission. And like you, I think that this is an exciting commission that has a lot of potential. And it's one of those that is even more important in a fiscally tight situation. When we're flush with money, people are less concerned about efficiencies. But at this point in time, it's very, very important to us. So I thank you for your commitment, Bruce, to serve again to the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move this item and recommend the appointment. Do we know when this will be before council?
I believe next week.
Yep,
Next week?
next
Okay,
week.
great. You have all that information?
Yes, sir.
You said. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's
Oh, and we have one speaker before we take action. Richard Hopp.
Thank you very much. I'm here to support Bruce Ackerman for the commission, but there's one issue. In the file, the Ethics Commission review report is not there, but I was told it was issued. And I'd like to know where the report is.
still pending.
Those are required to be in the file before we take council action, so by the time we take council action, it should be in there.
I was told it was already issued. His background is check review is not in the file either, and I'm not worried about that in any capacity. But I do, my readers are concerned to see the Ethics Commission review. So do you know if it's been issued already, just not put in the file?
It's as of this time, it's not on the file yet. I have to check if it's been issued. At the time when the agenda was posted, everything was still pending.
Do you know who the investigator is from the Ethics Commission that is working on it? Thank
Mr.
you.
Hopp, and you just put your name here, but you are, you may want to fill your card out with your address, and you said you're with your readers. What organization are you with?
I'm not required to disclose that, and I'm not required to disclose my address either.
Oh,
under
okay.
the Brown Act.
That's
Thank
true,
you.
right? They're just required to say your name? Well, you did say your readers, so I was wondering if you want to disclose that, since you said your readers. No?
My readers, limited. My readers support Councilman Zine zealously, and we just want to
Well, that's
promote him.
good. We don't need to know who he is. He's a good man.
Yeah. So there's
Thank
just, people sometimes make inaccurate accusations, and I just like to make sure the facts speak for themselves. And unfortunately, some individuals, if Councilman Zine's in the mix on it, that should be good enough. But some individuals want a little bit more. So
Great.
I will say that Mr. Ackerman currently serves on the CRA board. He went through the ethics review for that.
I know everything about them.
Okay, all right, okay. But whatever it is, we'll make sure it's
Thank you.
legit and legal.
Okay, it's just basically fact-finding, just to show that some liberals don't try to attack his integrity.
Not Rush Limbaugh, is it?
Excuse me, liberals.
It's not Rush Limbaugh.
Liberals, sir.
I want to attack his integrity.
Because we fit in that liberal.
For my information, we're not when somebody signs up to speak, a name is sufficient. There's the other additional information on this card is not required.
Yeah, I can check on that
Check
and
on
get
it.
back.
Right.
Because we have Zumadog who comes in and speaks, and we know that's not his real name, but he comes and speaks all the time.
What is it?
Let's have the controller do an audit on that. I see the controller's staff back there saying, you give us enough work, don't give us that work. No,
Thank
yeah,
you.
that-
We'll move that item. Thank you very much, Mr. Ackerman. Thank you. Next item.
Now you can carpool with Marty.
Item number 3 is the controller report relative to the audit of energy conservation measures in the city. This item is also referred to the Energy and Environment Committee.
Okay. And item number 4 is related somewhat. I'm not sure. Should we take that item together with 3? Is that okay? Ms. Grohl? Okay, we'll take item 3 and 4. Can you read 4, please?
Item number 4 is motion by Council Members Gruel and Cardenas relative to to designating a central oversight department or agency that would be responsible for coordinating citywide energy conservation measures. This item is also referred to the Information Technology and General Services Committee.
Thank you. Welcome.
Rick Taguchi, Controller's Office.
Don't look behind you, you're by yourself.
I thought someone else was coming up.
They're not going to come forward.
In the audience, we have Doug Bennett from our consultant, North Star, who's the subject matter expert if you have later questions. The audit was issued in June 2008. The primary objective was to evaluate energy conservation efforts in the city. We focused primarily on the energy conservation program administered by GSD because it's one of the largest programs. Overall, the audit found that within buildings, GSD is focusing on energy conservation measures that have the most bang for the buck, specifically lighting projects. However, we found a few issues with our report. Just to go through some of them, first of all, there's not a citywide department, one city department that's responsible for overall oversight and coordination for energy conservation measures in the city. So, for example, Convention Center and also Recreation and Parks have their own energy conservation programs outside of GSD's program. In addition, there's not one single department responsible for issuing policies and procedures to departments on energy conservation measures. And therefore, departments are pretty much left on their own to come up with those policies and procedures, and they might not have the expertise. Secondly, the Energy Conservation Program was established in 2001, yet there were no goals and objectives for the program. So in other words, some of the goals and objectives could address things like number of projects to be completed and potential savings that could be achieved as a goal. And there were no such goals. Next, there was a balance of $980,000 in the Energy Conservation Loan Program Fund. It appears that most of these monies could be transferred to the general fund because the general fund was not being reimbursed for labor costs incurred under the program. GSD has completed energy savings in only 102 of its inventory of 959 buildings, despite the program being in existence for 7 years. The initial intent of the program was to use energy service companies or contractors to do most of the work. However, only a small number of projects were completed using these energy service companies. GSD did not have adequate documentation to support its $1.5 million in estimated savings. Before a project begins, GSD estimates the savings, and then once the project is complete, they go back to utility bills to try to figure out what the estimated actual savings were. And there's no comparison between the two. So by doing a comparison, you might be able to determine whether there's some flaws in the methodology. For example, a lot of the estimate is based on how much the lights are being operated. So let's say the estimate is based on the lights operating 20 hours a day, but they're only operating 15 hours a day, so then the savings will be overstated by 33%. And also due to a lack of documentation, we couldn't we couldn't verify the savings. In other words, they use certain months to go back to the electric bill. So let's say the project was completed in March of 2008. They would look at, let's say, March 2007 to try to see how much was saved. But the months they used, we couldn't tell whether that was the correct month because we couldn't tell when the project was completed in most cases. And then Water and Power completed a study which it evaluated 475 buildings for energy efficiency measures. and Water and Power estimated annual savings of $6 million. GSD estimates that it's going to cost $38 million to implement those measures, and we're suggesting that before the city spends $38 million, it might be a good idea to take a look at the savings independently to verify that those savings would be achieved before you spend the $38 million.
38 to save 6?
Yeah, so the payback would be what would be a 6-year payback period in effect. And then lastly, GSD did not apply for all the available rebates, which resulted in a potential loss of about $100,000.
Okay, thank you. There's someone here from GSD.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Easton. I'm the Director of Building Maintenance with the Department of General Services.
Your general responses to the report?
Well, my general response is, we really, first of all, want to thank the Controller for doing the audit. The audit brought out some very good recommendations that we know can improve the program that GSD has managed, as well as any other program that we would decide to go with. One of the things that the Controller's audit found was that GSD did not have the adequate resources to perform the energy conservation measures in the city or within GSD. That was really the overwhelming issue that led to all the deficiencies that were identified in the program. With proper project management staff, we can take and implement a lot of the recommendations that the Controller made to take and make the program better. We were never funded any positions. There were actually 0 positions dedicated to the project management of the energy conservation program. So we used building maintenance employees on a part-time basis to try to take and achieve these savings. And I really think it's very important for the committee to understand that, these employees that did the energy conservation efficiencies implementations in city buildings, they did the city a great service. They saved the city about $1.5 million annually by going in and taking lighting systems that were inefficient, removing the inefficient systems, and installing efficient systems. We did not have all the documentation to quantify the savings, but it's pretty much, a straightforward approach. If I go into a building and I remove fixtures that use 32 watts per fixture or 32 watts per lamp, and then take and install, fixtures that use 25 watts per lamp, I'm going to get savings, but it's going to be relative. The usage is one of the factors that we've always found that it's very difficult to control in a building. You can't really control how long any operating department operates in a building. The operations of a department change. They move into a building, they hire more staff, they bring in more equipment. So a lot of that eats into your energy savings that you do realize. But the point I'm trying to make here is not to be overly analytical. It's a pretty straightforward approach. If we know what the old device is that we're taking out, the inefficiencies of it, and what the new energy efficient device is, the savings are there. They're relative because you don't control the hours of operation. So I just want to say that, with the proper project management staff, we can take and achieve a much better program and implement the recommendations that were made by the Controller. GSD had, before the audit, actually begun working with other departments within the city to expand the energy conservation program, and we do have a plan that has been submitted to the committee today for your review.
Has the Controller's Office had an opportunity to review the plan that was submitted today?
Just a very cursory review. We just received it late this morning. It's been fine, as far as we can tell. We didn't have any major issues.
You don't have any, and does that address some of the issues that were raised in your audit?
Yes, basically it talks about doing energy efficiency measures in about 475 buildings.
But it generally just speaks to a plan to rectify those. So the proof is in the pudding to see how we actually start implementing that plan and see the results from it, right? And how long would we realize the full implementation of this plan?
Well, the full implementation, we've begun hiring the project management staff. We've actually received approval on some of those. We're anticipating right now that we're probably going to have the project management staff hired by probably the middle of October. The one thing that we do still need is an unfreeze of the the workforce that we're going to be using. We're going to be using the local hiring hall employees to do a lot of the energy efficiency retrofit. That's where the crews will come from. We need to get an unfreeze of that so that we can hire the electricians and the helpers that would do the work. Once that is done, we can take, and it'll take us probably about 3 weeks beyond that to hire the staff, and then we think it's going to take us about 6 months to take and complete the first 15 buildings, which are the large energy users in the city. So we're probably looking at sometime around May of 2009, we think, to complete the first 15 projects.
Okay. And how many employees do you intend to hire?
Well, for the project management staff, there's going to be a total of 10 employees. So we're going to go from 0 to 10. That should help us greatly in the management of the program. And to actually do the energy retrofits, we're going to have 6 crews. We're planning to run 6 crews to do the projects, and those crews will be composed of anywhere from, 6 to 10 electricians on each crew, probably.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zine? Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I have a few. The retrofit, is it taking the lights out and putting new lights in?
That's part of it on some of the lights. I mean, it's taking lights out of, if the existing fixtures already have electronic ballast, it's a matter of relamping, just taking the existing lights out and putting new lights in. But most of the facilities that we're going to see the old type fixtures where we're going to have to replace the ballast. So it's basically disconnecting the electrical ballast that's in, replacing that, and then also replacing the lamps. And also includes, there are other measures that the Department of Water and Power had recommended to us that we will implement, which includes occupancy sensors, so that we maximize the off time of the lights in the building when no one's in there.
And the 50 or 60 people total you're going to be hiring,
Yes.
what's the hourly rate per person?
Hourly rate of an electrician is probably somewhere around $30 an hour.
We can't get something a little less expensive to do that work?
Well,
I mean,
I would not recommend for that because, once again, the point is they're going to be messing with electricity. I mean, taking electrical ballast out, they're going to have to be qualified, certified electricians to remove the ballast,
Well, I'm
run
not
the
an
electrical
electrician. I've
circuit.
done that work myself, and I'm still here. I got electrocuted. I lost my hair, but I'm still here. I think that when you're looking at $38 million, if that's what the total is, with this budget that we're facing, you may want to look at apprentice or something where they could bring some people in who are the apprentice program at a lot less. I just think the budget's going to be extremely tight. I do support the project. However, I remember when I was a young elected official here, there was a program presented to me with an outside firm, and I don't remember that firm's name. And they were going to do this to the whole city. Do you know whatever happened to that project?
No, what happened to that project?
There's a man in the back room who probably knows about that. David? And that was a project to do exactly what you're talking about. It may have stumbled along the way. You know which one I'm talking about?
David Haskell from the Department of General Services.
You met with those folks a few times?
Yeah, when we started this program, I guess 7 or 8 years ago, we did meet with a number of private sector companies that are called ESCO companies that do energy retrofits on major buildings.
Remember the one that we were working with, the name, I'm missing that name. We met with them a number of times.
Chevron,
Yeah.
Johnson Control?
Johnson Controls.
Yeah,
Johnson Controls,
right,
okay.
right. And we met with them recently, yeah.
What happened between the 7 and 8 years?
Well, let me tell you what happened. We decided to award a contract to an ESCO company, and I believe it was Chevron. And that was a retrofit for Piper Tech, which is about 1 million square feet. And it was a top-to-bottom retrofit where we looked at lighting. We also looked at mechanical systems and other mechanical systems and HVAC systems. And it was interesting. They completed that retrofit, and when it was completed, the company went back to verify the savings, and the savings wasn't there. And what we did was, we then inventoried the entire facility, and we found out that during the course of that energy retrofit, that a number of city departments and divisions at Piper Tech had installed new equipment that required electrical power. When we backed out the installation of that new equipment, the savings was there. But the lesson that GSD learned was that we probably don't have a lot of control over what departments and divisions install in their offices that require electrical power. So after that experience, we kind of took a step back and realized that, first of all, in most buildings, the electrical power for lighting is maybe 40% of the entire load. So we decided to put our focus on retrofitting the lighting systems in city-owned buildings and to put our entire focus on that. And as a result of that, we ended up retrofitting 103 buildings, and we saved about $1.5 million. The other thing we discovered is that under our energy efficiency loan program with the DWP, we have a maximum payback of 10 years. And when we did our analysis on mechanical systems, which are large energy consumers, we would never be able to put together an analysis that would call for a payback of less than 10 years. So that was another reason why we got away from, trying to retrofit entire buildings. And once we realized that we should put our focus on lighting, we realized we could do that in-house using city employees or using hiring hall employees. So that was the composition of our workforce as we move forward. We certainly have continued to look at the use of ESCO companies, and we've continued to talk with a number of companies about the possibilities that are out there. But as Mr. Eason mentioned, one of the biggest factors in controlling your savings is being able to control the operation of the building. And we just don't have that kind of authority or ability at this point in time. So in order to make sure that we did achieve the savings, again, we focused in on lighting, because we won't have to walk into this conference room next week and all of a sudden notice that someone's added another light fixture, okay? So that was kind of the reason why we moved away from those companies, but we do see them as valuable as we move forward, and we certainly want to sit down and talk to them now that we're expanding the program. The other thing I'll say, since you called me up, Councilman Zine, is that we started this program 7 or 8 years ago. It wasn't because of direction from the mayor or direction from the council. We saw the opportunity to save money. And energy conservation is not building maintenance work. But I tasked the director of building maintenance with the responsibility for taking on this energy conservation, this energy retrofit program. And that's another distinction that I should make. There's a difference between energy conservation and retrofitting city-owned buildings. We have never been mandated as a department to actually have an energy conservation program or energy conservation division. But we decided to start doing energy retrofits so that we could save electrical power and we could save money. Because my responsibility is kind of interesting. You have building maintenance that's responsible for retrofitting city-owned buildings for lighting, then I have my asset management division that pays for electricity. So I had an internal incentive to try to do something about that, and we did. The only thing that we're looking at now doing is, instead of doing 15 to 20 buildings a year, we're going to do about 100 buildings a year under this new program. And you mentioned the cost of $38 million. That's going to come through our energy efficiency loan program with the DWP. And the DWP is here today, and they can talk to you about that program. I personally spent 2.5 years working on negotiating that agreement with the DWP. So it took us a long time. And I really, really welcome the controller's audit and the acceleration of the program that we have, but we've got to have the resources to do that.
I question if you're going to get the resources as you wish due to the economic situation, number one. Number two, for the personnel that fall under you, Mr. Eisen, the switches on the wall all have tags. Now, I leave here normally late at night, and when I walk out the building, I see many offices with the lights still on. Why can't we have our custodial personnel, after they finish those offices, why can't they turn off the lights in those offices, whether it's on weekends or holidays? You'll go through this building, I'm sure other buildings that are not occupied at night, because this building is basically vacant overnight. And I have a mandate in my office, when they leave, they turn off the lights in their office and turn off the lights in my section of the building. Why can't we have the custodial personnel do that when they leave?
And we do have that mandate within GSD. We have required our custodial staff to do just that. Unfortunately, Mr. Zine, I mean, that's it's human nature when you forget to turn the lights off, and that's one of the focuses of our program. We will install occupancy sensors, which will that'll take care of that for you.
Right.
And actually, it's what we're going to call vacancy sensors, because the idea is that when the office is vacant, the lights will be off. You will have to manually turn them on. They automatically go off. It's just a control strategy that's almost foolproof to take and realize that savings.
Has that been implemented here at City Hall?
That's going to be implemented here at City Hall. City Hall is one of the first 15 buildings.
Okay, so we don't have that yet throughout the city?
That is
Or
correct.
throughout the City Hall, I should say.
That is correct.
And Councilman Zine, as a prelude to that, I asked Dan Easton to install those stickers, okay?
No,
Yeah, right.
Stickers are great.
Yeah, but the next phase is going to be the installation of the vacancy sensors.
Okay. Because I was just going to say, if we're shut off for the weekend,
Yes.
Exactly.
and the lights are on for the whole weekend, that's burn up electricity for nothing.
And that kind of gets back to the question about, the qualifications of the staff that are going to install these efficiencies, installing the lighting ballast, installing the switching devices. We will look at obviously minimizing the cost by using apprentices where we can, but we've got to make sure that they're qualified, they're safe. Safety of our employees is
I agree with
really
that,
important.
100%. I just think that cost has to be something we can afford.
We agree.
Thank you.
Ms. Gruhl?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. One is, it was started in 1996, and were there 15 buildings you initially did, and
That's-
now there's an additional 15 buildings?
Coincidence, but yes, that's correct.
Okay, because I was thinking, we're not just starting phase one of the 15 buildings. It was confusing as I was looking at the notes there. So the 15 buildings that are outlined in your attachment 7, which include City Hall, and now some of City Hall is retrofitted. I mean, for example, my offices are sensor-based, so you leave your office and if you sit there for a long time and at your seat, the lights go off, and which is good.
Keeps you awake.
There were a couple. One of the recommendations, which is in the item 4, which is the motion that I introduced with Mr. Cardenas, was looking at having specifically a citywide. I mean, you indicated that general services has, and I'll use the example of how, like, Office of Public Safety. I mean, as you may recall, we had security officers in each department, and we combined them because not only was it a better response and coordination, I think, but no longer duplication of services. So right now, GSD, although responsible for a number of buildings, which building or which departments are not under the and their energy conservation programs are not under the Department of General Services?
That would be the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, the Harbor Department, the airports, Recreation and Parks, the Convention Center, and the process facilities at the Bureau of Sanitation.
Okay.
A lot of facilities in the city.
And in some of those, I might say, would be great to be under GSD. Others might still need to be separate, but having, and I don't know, and I didn't see in any of the recommendations kind of a way in which to get to that consolidated or coordinated approach, whether it is a ongoing task force that meets regularly, which is all those proprietary departments and somewhat proprietary rec and parks, to look at, again, economies of scale, ways in which we can do that, because DWP, you would hope, would have the most up-to-date and knowledgeable and resources available and coordination. Airport is going through a major modernization of their buildings. Where is it that there is a responsibility and a mandate and a coordination that says we're doing things all at the same level, and being able to do that? Is there a way to?
Well,
I mean, because that was one of the controller's recommendations, was how do we do that?
Before you respond to that, well, first of all, Councilman Gruhl, those are very good questions, and what we have been doing, because we are now going to establish an energy conservation program in the Department of General Services, is that we've met with a number of consultants, because we want to bring in a consultant to develop a strategic plan and an org structure for the City of Los Angeles energy conservation program. We've met with the Clinton Climate Initiative, and they're going to be working with us on helping us develop that. And we've met with a number of other consultants. We don't have, in the Department of General Services, the expertise to develop a world-class energy conservation program. And that's what we think the city deserves, and that's the reason why we're bringing in some consultants. I think they should look at the issue that you just raised, the fact that there are energy conservation programs in other departments, and does it make sense to leave some of them separate and then to fold, or at least recommend folding some of them into GSD? So,
And, as it says here, the Bureau of Engineering is responsible for ensuring that all renovations in new city buildings are designed with energy-efficient products, and GSD has no involvement in that process. So BOE is another group of,
Yes.
again, creating these brand-new buildings. So what you're going to include in the report back is a recommendation, whether it is as part of that program, either an org chart or the hiring of a consultant that will give you best practices for
yes,
that.
yes.
And that is part of our strategic, our plan right now is Phase 3 is just that, basically hire a consultant or either do something with the Clinton Foundation to take and identify, like David was saying, the strategy for a citywide energy conservation office, how that would be coordinated to study, the programs that GSD has, the programs that the others have, and then lay out that organizational structure and help us put together a budget for exactly what that would be to do that. It's a large undertaking.
It is, but I'm not sure, I wouldn't almost say that would be Phase 1 that is running parallel to some of the retrofit, because
Two more.
otherwise, you're going to have problems with best, so
And you're right.
again,
When I say Phase 3, it's the third item we're doing, but it will happen concurrently with Phase 1 and
Okay.
Phase 2.
And actually, Councilwoman, we're working on that now.
Okay.
Yes.
So one of the things, I do have a couple more questions. I think I would like to have a report back within 60 days as to where we are on that as well.
Okay.
In that coordination and consolidation, because every day that we're not, I think we're losing money and opportunities in that way. The other was, there was something pointed out, and I was not familiar with this, which was the audit found that GSD does not use performance guarantee contracts. And I don't know if that's a specific way in which we look at it, but the GSD was saying it was not efficient. And I'm not, what I would think a performance guarantee is, you have to perform or you don't get paid, or there's certain things. So could you maybe explain that to me, or the controller, what you found?
Well, performance guarantee contracts, the first 15 projects we did using energy service companies were supposedly performance guarantee contracts. What we found in those first 15 is that the performance of the energy efficiencies they would guarantee for a 2-month or 3-month period of time. And understand, what they're guaranteeing is they're guaranteeing that the project is going to deliver the savings that they calculate. And they find the same problem that we find. You can only control the use for a limited amount of time before departments start to increase the use of the facility or change the use of the facility. The one thing that's most common is we can guarantee kilowatt reductions or wattage reductions. I mean, if you go in and you take out equipment that uses a certain level of energy and you put in equipment that uses a lower level of energy, you can guarantee that. You can guarantee the wattage reduction. But the time factor is the wild card. So performance guarantee contracts will guarantee that savings. They weren't very successful with the first 15 projects that we did. So that was the reason we went away from those. Over at Piper Tech, that David indicated, that was a performance guarantee contract with Chevron USA. But Chevron USA did not deliver on a guaranteed performance because of the very change of the building. LAPD went in. I'm sorry, it was LAPD. But
I'm no longer there.
But anyway, they went in, they did a lot of changes to their operation at Piper Tech, and it ate into those guaranteed savings. So performance guarantee contracts are difficult at best.
But it would seem that would be, maybe I'm wrong, an anomaly where you're going to dramatically change the utilization of a building. In this instance, it was LAPD, but that in others, that it would be longer than a 2 or 3 month period of time. And so I would hate for us to throw out some kind of performance guarantee. Again, if we go out to contract and we're going to do this, to look at it and maybe redesign it based on so many people in the building, so many departments, and to be able to ascertain if there's a change in the structure of that building based on new, we bring in all brand new computers and they're, you have double the whatever it may be.
And that would be our intent. Obviously, we would still require the performance guarantee if we do contract out some of the services, which we do plan to do. And it would take, and I'm sure whenever any company gives us a performance guarantee, it's going to be with limitations. It's going to identify the condition of the building when they did the retrofit, right?
Which I think would be important, but it would be, we would like to judge the successfulness of that. The last thing is, it says in my notes that the staffing has been provided for 9 of the 10 requested unfreeze positions to implement. Are you in the process of hiring those people?
Yes, we are. We've actually hired one person. We've hired a part-time employee, a 90-day authority that's helping us with putting together the assessments of the buildings that we're going to do in the first 15. We are interviewing today and the rest of this week to hire the rest of the positions. We anticipate that we will hire all of the project management staff probably by the middle of October. That's when we think we'll probably have the remainder of all the electricians, the civil service staff that's going to be a part of that project management team on board.
And are there recommendations that are in the audit that could also be applied to our cities, the water, our water conservation efforts?
Yes, one of the things that we decided over the last 2 or 3 weeks is that for those first 15 buildings in the first phase, as we're going through them, we're going to look at how we can provide some staff to do the water conservation. We're already installing, waterless urinals throughout the city, and we've been doing that for probably about 9 months. We're also putting in low-flow toilets. We're also changing out aerators. We're going into fire stations and making sure that they have restrictors on the showers. We've been working on that for some time. But it came up a couple of weeks ago, since we were going through the first 15 buildings, to retrofit them for, reductions in electrical power. It made sense to go ahead and do some water conservation as well. So we're going to try to achieve that as part of the first 15 buildings, which really are a pilot, and then we'll have a better sense on how to approach 100 buildings per year for both electrical and water conservation.
What would be important as we're going out to our constituencies and having, water audits and others, and potentially fining people for, and I know there was some TV station that had us, this was not your department, but watering down the tennis courts or other places. So hope is that would similarly, and I think the mayor had an executive directive that asked all the departments, but you are particularly the maintainers of the buildings. So I think it would be important to set a
We're working very closely with Rec and Parks because 64% of the water usage is irrigation water that is used by Rec and Parks, and then we use the balance of it, and that's domestic water in city buildings. But we're working with them, and they're working with us because we really feel that energy conservation is really one challenge, not a separate challenge for that department or this one.
Okay. Sorry for some questions.
Mr. Zhang?
Just a couple of follow-up. Recs and Parks is currently underway with a program for irrigation, where they've got a program underway where they're hiring folks in the community to do the irrigation throughout the parks. It seems to be successful in saving water. How much have we spent on consultants in the last 7 years in this particular category?
I can probably get you that information, but the only money that we spent has been on ESCO companies that have come in and actually retrofitted city-owned buildings. We have not funded or hired any other consultants to do anything else. But, Councilman, I want Dan Eason, though, because you touched on something, to talk about the Green Workforce Program.
Yeah, well, let me get to that after I get this. And on employees that we're talking about hiring, are these new employees or are these retired employees coming back to a job? Or are we trying to help those individuals that are looking for work?
The 90-day authority, we're bringing back Bob Campbell, who was formerly the director of the Construction Forces Division before Nick Pendorf was appointed. And he's coming back on a 90-day authority, and his background is electrical. So that's the reason why we brought him back. And also, he obviously has experience, managing, large programs.
Now, what about the other employees that you're looking at hiring?
Okay, the other employees, Dan Easton would have to speak to that.
Well, I think the question was, are these new hires?
New hires, or are they people who've retired and they're coming back?
Yeah. Only one's retired and coming back. The rest are new hires.
Only one retired?
Yes.
Okay. How many buildings do we have in the city that would be available for retrofit? Total number of buildings in the city that we own?
Well,
or that we're only doing the ones we own, I assume. We're not doing the ones we're leasing?
that's right. As we go through, one of the selection criteria will be to make sure that we do own the building, and that also that we pay the utility bill for the building, because the utility bill is going to have to pay those loans back. So that, yes, they will be city-owned buildings. That number is roughly, and this gets to be everything, Councilman, from, City Hall to the little shacks outside on all these properties, the tool sheds, the equipment sheds and whatnot, but about 956 buildings.
Okay, 956 buildings.
We
And-
estimate the 38.7 million or the 39 million or 40 million roughly that we are talking about is for, that's the high-level estimate for 497 buildings.
That's not even half of them.
That's correct.
The other question on new buildings, new libraries, fire stations, police stations, are they all equipped with this latest conservation technology?
Yes, most of the newer stations have the latest and greatest energy efficiency as far as for the lighting systems. Not necessarily true on the water systems. But so those right there will probably, the energy efficiency technology is constantly evolving. So we're going to have energy efficiency technology, 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, that's going to be much more efficient than it is today. I can imagine at that point in time, we're going to end up coming back to some of those newer buildings now that were built in the early stages of the bond programs to take and actually retrofit those lighting systems also.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. What we'll do with this item is don't follow it and refer to energy and environment. We also, I don't think you need any exemptions from the management, the managed hiring process to implement phase one. Do you?
Well, we do.
You do.
The hiring hall is still, we do not have an exemption on the hiring hall
Okay.
at this time. And that's critical because that's the workforce. Those are the crews.
How can you get that action from?
We're working with the CAO to take and try to get that taken care of.
All right, well, let's see if that could happen. And also, we would like to get a report back to this committee in 6 months, the status on implementing the retrofits in the 15 facilities in phase one, and more detailed implementation plan for phase two. We could get that information within 6 months.
Okay.
And also, Ms. Gruhl requested a report back in 60 days.
Yes.
Can you repeat that, Ms. Gruhl?
That was on the
Be clear on that.
Yeah, 60 days on the coordination between the various departments and organization structure of that
Strategic plan. too.
Okay.
And the other question you brought up about green, I think that's item number 5.
Yeah.
I just noticed.
Oh, it is. Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
I didn't know that.
I guess
I didn't want to cut you off on it, but it is item number 5.
Okay, thank you. We have one public comment card on this item. Ben Beach. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, council members. Ben Beach from Community Benefits Law Center here on behalf of the Los Angeles Apollo Alliance today. Just wanted to first express the Apollo Alliance's appreciation for the controller's work on the audit. I should start by saying that the Apollo Alliance is a broad coalition of community, labor, and environmental groups that have been working for over 2 years in Los Angeles to encourage the city to adopt a comprehensive green retrofitting program for its buildings that provides for a set of economic justice values like local hiring, the creation of good jobs, things that will really leverage the opportunities to create green careers in the communities most in need in our city as we undertake the retrofitting, the green retrofitting of these buildings. Apollo Alliance has had some really constructive and positive conversations with the Controller's Office, and today I just wanted to highlight for the council members as well as for the department staff just a couple of differences between the discussion I've just heard and the ordinance or the resolution adopted by council last month adopting a CLA report that provides for the comprehensive retrofitting of city-owned buildings over 7,500 square feet or constructed before 1978. So the first difference is that it's talking about a comprehensive retrofitting of those buildings as opposed to just an energy retrofitting. But secondly, the CLA report adopted by council last month sets out parameters that would ensure that as the city undertakes retrofitting, it does so in a way that creates good jobs for folks in communities that most in need, and that the retrofitting occurs in a way that prioritizes buildings in those communities. So I guess I would simply encourage you as you help to guide the implementation of the of this audit and of the department's activity to be mindful of those principles so that we're not just making our buildings more efficient, but that we're helping our communities as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you very much for those comments, and thank you for reminding us all of that resolution, the motion that was passed in council that asked for a comprehensive approach to retrofitting all our buildings, and also working with our local communities to get local hiring and decent wages for folks. So I think principles that the council adopted, and hopefully we could abide by those principles through this process.
Absolutely. Excuse me. We've started meeting months ago with the representatives out in the community who are involved in this project to talk to them, and we've made it very, very clear that the Department of General Services supports the idea of hiring individuals from this community, providing them with some training. That training hopefully would become an opportunity to actually become a journey person in one of the crafts. So we wholeheartedly suggest that the Personnel Department and as well as, I believe, the CAO create the conduit for those people to be hired by us to help us retrofit city-owned buildings. And so there have been some meetings, there have been some discussions. We support it, but right now there's no conduit to bring those people from the community into the city to join our workforce. So I believe that the community-based group that is working on that has met with the Personnel Department and initiated some discussions about how do we create that conduit. But once it's created, believe me, we will hire them to work on our projects.
Thank you.
I've got a question on that, David, regarding the background checks and security for the building. When we hire city employees, they go through a background check.
Yes.
If we go out to a private, what type of background check is there for those people who have access to City Hall?
See, I think personnel has to really respond. The Personnel Department has to respond to that concern, and there are a number of concerns related to the hiring of local residents to work in this program. But that's really, Councilman Zine, I think, a question that would most appropriately be answered by the Personnel Department.
Is personnel here?
I don't believe so.
Maggie Whalen, where are you?
Yeah.
We need to have, where's our legislative, we need to have that answered. When we have hiring and people have access to City Hall, council officers, mayor's office, et cetera, once people get in this building, they really have full access to the facility. We need to make sure that appropriate checks are made on those individuals. Security is an issue here at City Hall. And I think that at least we have a city identification. There's been a check. If we go out to a private vendor, what type of check is made, background check on those individuals? If it's outside a facility, I don't have a lot of concern about, but when they have access to inside a facility, such as City Hall or any of our police stations.
Police stations, fire stations, others.
There's a concern about the safety and security of the employees. So we need to find out if they can report on that, what type of check for when they go outside vendors.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Beach, for being here as well. Thank you. So we've...
Number 5.
So, Mr. Chair, for item number 4, you would like that to also, to move it to the ITGS committee for
Yes,
that matter?
yes, please. Next item.
Item number 5 is a discussion relative to Johnson Controls, Inc. presentation regarding a proposal for self-funding financial strategy the city can engage to implement its building retrofit goals, which will help us to expand energy savings, renew our infrastructure, and create green-collar jobs.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you. In our discussions in preparing for today's meeting, your approach was mentioned a number of times, so we thought it might be worthwhile to have you here before us today as well, to have you speak as to how you approach some of these issues. So welcome. Please identify yourself, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name's Eric Bauer. I'm with Johnson Control, Business Development Director for our Clinton Climate Initiative team. And with me is Peter White, our National Director of the Clinton Climate Initiative team, as well as Joy Clark, who is our National Director of Local Government. And with that, again, we would first off like to applaud GSD, David and Dan's efforts to date with their energy retrofit initiatives, understanding clearly the limitations from a resource perspective. We see that frequently from city to city, and obviously from the significance of LA, it's compounded even more. And so with that, we've been asked and appreciate the opportunity to really provide you with some general industry information really regarding the self-funding financial strategy, as was mentioned, and how that might augment GSD and DWP's efforts to date, and really focus on the self-funding financial component of that, of which that avenue has the ability to expand. We mentioned comprehensive citywide. That's really the funding vehicle that enables that to happen. And with that, we've got some various storyboards that we tried to basically kind of depict and educate in terms of what performance contracting is today. Currently, industry-wide, it's about a $5 billion industry. Johnson Controls currently has $750 million. We guarantee about $33 million a year as well. So with that, in terms of the definition, as you can see on the storyboard, basically we take a guaranteed energy and operational savings. First of all, on the left, you see the current operational costs. That's your budget today, which consists of operation and energy expenditures. And through a comprehensive program, we would guarantee the savings of those operational costs. In addition, there may be some opportunities to drive increased revenue through water, parking lot meters, et cetera. So we just threw that up there as a case point. So if you go over to the right, in terms of the program funding piece of that, so those energy savings, in essence, are the ability to fund the improvements.
I feel a little like Vanna right now.
Yeah, nice. As I teased her as I walked in, nice jacket. Can you see this?
Oh, that's right.
Good taste.
No,
I don't know.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you. Poor Vanna at that.
And if we go on to the next one. So here's how it's spelled out financially. So if you look on the left, there's status quo in terms of what your current utility expenses are today and what those operational costs are without applying any facility improvements. So we're not counting the $38 million that was discussed earlier, which, and this is just an example. So you would come up with your $15 million worth of annual expenses. So you got an approved budget, you got fixed costs, they remain unchanged. There's no facility improvement funding on the left. Then we move over to a scenario from a performance contracting perspective. We would drive 25% savings. We took a round number on the utility side, as well as a 10% savings on the operating costs. Add those numbers up, you get $3 million worth of annual savings. You would use those savings to basically drive those infrastructure improvements. So down below, you still have the approved budget of $15 million total. Your fixed costs basically are just reallocated. And then from an infrastructure perspective, we would extrapolate that $3 million over a 10-year term, which would provide you with $30 million today to provide those improvements, those infrastructure upgrades to address your capital needs today, and as most importantly, too, from an energy and environment perspective, drive down energy and utility costs. Next. Again, recognize we don't have much time here, but really it's about the money, so how do we fund? And from a municipality perspective, we take a look at the financing. Basically, the customer finances the facility improvements through a municipal lease, and really what drives that municipal lease is the self-funding approach. Again, so the guarantee component of this is critical because you would align your guarantee term to retire that debt. Okay, so if we had $3 million a year over 10 years, that would completely retire the debt and provide you with $30 million capital improvement funding. And then in terms of business energy tax credits, those were mentioned as well, any type of incentives, carbon offsets, et cetera, and rebates. And then really the opportunity here from a capital budget perspective is we're able to expand the program because you have other infrastructure needs other than lighting. You have major mechanical infrastructure that's beyond its useful life. You're strapped with capital. Here's an opportunity to replace that capital or that equipment today, reduce your risk of that equipment failing, and as importantly from a performance contract guarantee perspective, that operational guarantee and utility savings is shed to the provider, the ESCO. So the risk is in turn reduced. And the important thing here, too, we have an ability to fast track. And I don't know what happened to the other. Go to the next. Yes, that one. Upside down. And really what we're coining this, and there's different terms, there are different definitions of comprehensive. There can be a comprehensive lighting program, which was just mentioned, and that's a big difference between a lighting retrofit and a comprehensive lighting program. And we can go into those details later, and I know GSD is very well versed in that and have the competency there. But looking at the comprehensive versus individual measures, that's what we're kind of trying to hit the nail on here, the head of the nail. And really what that enables you to do is expedite results today from a green jobs perspective. And then in terms of looking how can we drive compelling operational savings? Granted that we're focusing on utility, but we're also focusing on operations and maintenance upgrades through the use of technology and different processes. And then in terms of from a climate initiative perspective, we have the tools and the measurement and the capabilities to reduce those greenhouse gases and track those and monitor those and report those back. Again, and then in terms of the opportunity was expressed to see how a program such as this can basically take your seed money today of $38 million, and through a guaranteed performance contract program over a 10-year term, expand that into $120 to $140 million by capturing additional savings or waste streams that are out there today, and enabling those retrofits to happen today or before 2012. And then those guaranteed savings, operational savings dollars, are carried over the course of that 10-year term, and that debt is completely retired after that 10-year term. And then the next one, we just gave a typical, there's many case studies, as I mentioned before. It's about a $5 billion industry. We've got a host of cities out there. We put the city of Dallas-Fort Worth in there in terms of understanding what their goals were initially and how those align with the city of LA's goals. Granted, there's a significant difference in size, but this shows you kind of the rough order of magnitude from a project perspective to expand those current dollars that they had allocated for energy improvement measures, and to basically redirect those dollars to drive additional utility operating savings, also address their capital equipment replacement needs. And in doing so, the main driver here was there's a process in place and a program in place that augments your current departments, understanding the conflicts and the restrictions from a resource allocation perspective, drives the community involvement too from a green jobs perspective, and really brings and bands those teams and those departments together to put together that comprehensive plan. And so the result of that, basically, the project grew to $61 million over a 10-year term. The annual benefit was $6.2 million. And from a guarantee perspective, they guaranteed $67 million. And so the improvement measures are listed below. There's a whole host of various improvement measures out there. Many of those have been identified in the preliminary audit reports. But from a building perspective, we wanted to kind of help educate from an order of magnitude. There was 160 buildings addressed. There's the order of magnitude from a financial benefit perspective. Next slide.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming by and giving us this information. And my question to GSD is, any thoughts on this approach? From what I understood, the little I've looked at this in the last couple of weeks as this item was coming up today, it seems like we're going towards doing energy for our buildings and not the comprehensive approach. There's a few other differences as to what this approach offers. So any thoughts on this?
Well, I think that's it's really, from my limited financial knowledge, I think this is a financial decision for the city, and it's a policy decision for the city. The reason implementation of energy efficiency measures by technology work for us is because it's a little bit more affordable to do, and you do get the most bang for your buck. When we get into, sorry about that, we get into the holistic building approach, it's going to be more costly. You'll get your greatest energy savings, but also I think our concern would be not really knowing what the long-term debt would be for the city and what the real cost would be. I mean, looking at the 160 buildings at $61 million, we've got 4 times that many facilities that we want to get done. So that's a quarter of $1 billion. That's $250 million And don't know what the debt service on that would be, but we would have to consider that. So once again, I think it's a financial decision, and it's a policy decision. If we're going to go with the whole building approach, I think the question begs to be answered with what the Apollo Alliance raised earlier. Why not include also the other things that are out there that are being talked about so much within the city, making all of the buildings LEED EB compliant, making all the buildings green buildings. You could very quickly get up into some really large money.
Is there, when you talk about funding, I mean, some of the things we do, is we finance through MICLA, we finance through, other kind of ways. If you could demonstrate, for example, and this is performance guarantee and all that, but if you could borrow on your future savings in some ways, because otherwise we don't really have this big pot of money to be able to do that. But if you could document and say, we're going to save this much money, which will allow us, therefore, to pay down the debt. Who out there? I mean, is a company like yours, others, does that kind of review, which is now's a bad time to go out to the banks or whatever. We make bonding agencies, but has that ready to say, this is how much money we're going to save, so we're going to invest in our infrastructure this much, and we will be able to pay off over the next several years that loan or whatever it may be, based on the fact of our savings.
So I guess the real question is the guaranteed savings, right?
It's partly the guaranteed savings, but are there companies, banks, bonding agencies?
Absolutely,
I see that,
absolutely, and that's
that
where
will do that. And so I guess the question is, how do you? Again, I agree with Mr. Zine. I mean, I'm on the budget committee as Mr. Wiesar is. This is a tough year, but if you need to be ready. So if we were able to go out and say for a it may be a contractual or within the city to say, let's look at, doing that with the fact of it will literally break even. It goes back to my point earlier, which was revenue generating kinds of things, that if you hire so many people in the quality, commission and you make suggested changes, it pays for itself.
It's interesting that you would mention MICLA, because it was just this past Tuesday that I had that kind of a discussion with the CAO's office, and I asked him to take a look at that issue. And I know that, even the MICLA program carries with it bonded indebtedness that must be paid for the general fund.
Yes.
And the general fund is obviously under a tremendous burden this fiscal year and probably several in the future. But we just wanted the CAO to look at that issue conceptually, because if you were able to not only use MICLA, but actually be provided with MICLA funding to do energy retrofits, then we could look more comprehensively at retrofitting entire city buildings, the holistic approach that Dan Eason mentioned. And the other thing is that unlike the loan program with the DWP, where we actually have to make loan payments over an extended period of time, in some cases 5, 6, 7 years, in this case we'd be looking at debt service for MICLA that would be financed over a 30-year period, and the annual debt service would be a lot less than the loan payments we make to the DWP. So that would move us closer to a point where we would actually realize a real savings in the general fund relative to paying bills for electrical consumption.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess maybe the direction, Mr. Chair, would be to ask the CAO to come back. I mean, it's kind of like an actuarial in some ways of
yes,
being
absolutely.
The future.
Yeah, the projected
for
savings. Yeah.
Projected savings in that instance.
Yeah.
So, to see what we would need to do to, quantify that kind of savings and what it would mean as we go through the budget process in this next year.
Sure, absolutely.
That'd be helpful. And also, as we look at this, we should think about the other issues that we adopted in a resolution about a month ago about local hiring, because that may also, I don't know how this fits into the larger question of any approach we take. And I think I'd want to see.
And I believe that motion did call for the CAO, GSD, and a few other departments to work together and come back with a report.
Okay, and one final question. When you mentioned earlier that at Piper Tech, we did the performance-based approach, and it didn't work for some reason because there was changes in...
Yeah, we could probably detail some of the changes that were made by other city departments and divisions during the time that we were actually doing the energy retrofit project. And it's not pointing fingers at anyone, but for instance, the LAPD, in setting up SID at Piper Tech, decided to go out and buy some very, very large refrigeration units, okay, during the period of time that we were actually doing the retrofit. That was equipment that they needed. There's no question about that. But that then made it difficult for us to achieve the projected savings that was in our technical proposal that we submitted to the DWP and that the DWP approved in order to give us the funding to do the retrofit. So that's just one example. And there were others as well.
Mr. Zine?
I was at Piper Tech yesterday afternoon, and I think SID has 5 of those 18-wheeler trailers that are there alongside SID. I guess they store perishable, a large quantity. There's 5 of those that you would see an 18-wheeler rolling down the road. They've got 5 of those trailers that are parked there. And I was looking at that, thinking how much energy is being used by those 5 huge trailers. It's not someone plugging their AM, FM radio in the light socket or turning on a little fan. It's obviously something that's generating a lot of power.
Well, we discovered that an entire prefabricated building was installed at Piper Tech without our knowledge.
You should have it torn down.
They have a permit.
Public safety is the #1 priority in the city.
There's also rules to follow, building safety. Who's the lobbyist for Johnson Controls?
We do not have a lobbyist.
You don't have a lobbyist? Okay, so you're working on your own. Okay. And what's the finance rate right now if they were to...
And just for the record, Mr. Zine, the Controller's Office and others who've been discussing this issue brought it to our attention so that we could hear out a different approach or about how this is done.
Okay. And the finance rate, what's the finance rate right now?
Do you have an update on
Well,
muni
percentage?
muni leases?
Yeah, I mean, it's been as low recently as 3.8%, but it all depends on the rating of the particular municipality and working with us. So it varies. You always get that question, as low as 3.8, and with interest rates rising, it could be as 4 or 5. But we've been as low as 3.8 recently. And just to clarify, we are not the financier. We have financing partners. Some of the largest bankers, Bank of America being one of our financing partners, are the people that actually supply the financing, working with us because we create that financial guarantee. And so it's a combination of us providing the guarantee that they feel comfortable in taking that risk.
Okay. And with the city's previous activities in the last 7 years that I've been here, I know we've talked about this a while. Have we ever seen any kind of an impact on saving on our electrical or our water with any of the conservation programs we've implemented in the last 7 years?
Well, we've achieved with the 103 buildings that we retrofitted a savings of $1.5 million, but that savings is debt service to repay the DWP.
So what was the loan to DWP, from DWP?
I think we're up to, what's the total amount of our outstanding loan to the DWP? I think it's 6.2?
Currently we owe 2.7.
2.7.
We owe 2.7, so when that's paid off, then we'll see a savings. When that's paid off, then the 2.7 is paid off, then we'll see a savings.
Yes, for those buildings.
For those buildings, okay.
Okay, now the other thing, though, you have to understand is that, again, as Dan Easton mentioned, the loads are not static. So, we may have retrofitted a building 2 or 3 years ago, and because of the installation of new equipment that requires electrical power, okay, that we have to pay for that. Okay, so by the time we get to the end of the DWP loan, okay, the amount of money we're spending for electrical power in that building may not have increased, but it may not have decreased either.
Okay. And the final question for John's Controls, if we were to say you have the project here at City Hall East, the new jail, Metropolitan Jail, et cetera, what kind of screening do your employees go through that do the installation and the retrofit?
Yeah, we do a full security background check. We've got, actually, we do a performance contract at the Pentagon, and we're in multiple lab facilities lockdown facilities, so we have a security process, but typically it's a collaborative process to ensure that we're in alignment with what your personnel requirements are from a security and a safety perspective.
Do all your competitors have the same standard?
They should.
You should. Okay, thank you. That was a good answer. They should. I like that. Whether they do or not, I don't know, but they should.
Thank you. So this item, we have asked for a report back for some actuarials from...
One report is 60 days, the other one is 6 months.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one public comment, Richard Hopp.
Thank you very much. My name is Richard Hopp. There's a issue that I've been dealing with for about a month regarding responses to public records requests. I've been communicating with the city clerk's office. Out of 478 cities, this is the only city that requires an individual that would like to do a public records request to go to each individual department to issue a public records request. All the other cities, they do it through the city clerk's office. They send a carbon copy to the city attorney's office, and they forward the public records request accordingly to what departments. I'm being told that for me to ask one question, I have to issue 50 public records requests. And I'm going to quantitate that on how much the city spends on that. If a public records request for me to ask one question costs $20 in time and 42-cent stamp and the envelope and so forth, and I have to do it to 50 different departments and commissions, that's $1,000. This is the only city that does it this way. All the other cities do it through a mechanized system. I need to know who I need to talk to at least try to convey how it could be fixed. It's not in compliance under Government Code 6252 in any capacity. It's not my job to go to every single council person, every single commission, every single department to do that. It's the job of the city clerk to distribute it. And I would like to know who I could start talking to find some type of resolution. The city has already spent over $10,000 in attorney's fees on lawsuits I've had to bring in, basically just giving money to my attorneys to buy a new Mercedes. And it's because of lack of education when they give it to a intern to respond to a public records request. I just need some guidance and try to find a resolution. Mr. Zine's office is probably a very, very good business model on how to conduct and comply with a public records request. And I applaud you for that. Your staff, I don't know if you how you educate them, but their attitude is an open hand policy, not a backhand policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.